to enter a plea of not guilty to both counts and deny the allegations that are attached thereto.
Searchers found a body believed to be that of 17-year-old Chelsea King. The remains were buried in a shallow grave in a park near a lake where she disappeared jogging.
The defendant in this case was just arraigned on 2 counts. The first count is murder. Attached to that count is the special allegation that the murder was committed during the commission or attempted commission of a rape. The second count he's been charged with is assault with intent to commit rape.
John Albert Gardner III, he is 30 years old. He's charged with rape and murder in this case.
They found her underwear, DNA evidence, and they found a shoe earlier before they found the body.
We charge the person who needs to be charged, and we are asking that he be held responsible.
There's a sense of relief that this monster has been removed from hurting anyone else that's out there.
The suspect, a dark, violent past. John Gardner, convicted sex offender. Now, back in 2000, he pleaded guilty to molesting a 13-year-old girl. She testified he tried to strangle her. Now, she escaped. Gardner served 5 years in prison. And before he was let out, a psychiatrist warned the court, I'm quoting here, he would be a continued danger to underage girls.
It was a 13-year-old girl that he raped. How as we as society sit back and say 5 years is sufficient?
Look at his face, the smirk you'll see that's on that mugshot. It was said there is no remorse. Well, apparently there isn't. This monster has done this not once, not twice, but probably many times.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. I want to thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight. Investigators zero in on a child sex predator, John Albert Gardner III, now linked to attacks on 5 girls, 5 that we know of, one as young as 13. In the last hours, 30-year-old Gardner in court in full shackle, charged with the murder of 17-year-old Chelsea.
Name is Charlie.
A registered sex offender arraigned today in the death of 17-year-old Chelsea King.
Mr. Gardner wishes to enter a plea of not guilty to both counts and deny the allegations that are attached thereure.
There is strong likelihood that we have found Chelsea.
They say her body was found 10 feet from the water's edge in a heavily wooded area.
Give some amount of cover to whoever did this.
They do have evidence, police say, linking John Albert Gardner to the crime.
DNA from the victims from the girl's underwear has been connected with the suspect.
The DNA sealed his fate. He's a 30-year-old scumbag.
He pleaded guilty in 2000 to molesting a 13-year-old and served 5 years in prison.
What he did was go up to a little 13-year-old girl who's waiting to catch a school bus, offer her a ride. Instead, he takes her to his home, takes off her clothes after they're watching movies, and then molests her.
A psychiatrist said that he was, quote, an extremely poor candidate for any sexual offender treatment. And he recommended the 30-year maximum for this guy, which would mean he'd be in jail right now.
What did the judge do? Gave him almost half of what he should have got.
One of the nicknames that I've always called my daughter is my angel.
This little girl went for a run. She was a cross-country running star, honor student.
The body was found in an area shortly, or not far from where we had previously discovered a piece of evidence, a shoe. It was about 10 to 15 feet away from a tributary that leads down to the lake, and it was covered in a shallow grave.
I believe he's not just a sex offender, but a sociopath. He has no remorse.
The special allegation attached to the murder does make the defendant eligible for the death penalty.
This is a girl whose parents thought they did everything right. She was an honor student, a cross-country track star, played the French horn in the San Diego Youth Symphony. She was the star of their lives. And tonight, we are waiting on a positive confirmation that this is her body. The body of a 17-year-old girl found buried in a shallow grave at the water's edge, missing that I know of, one shoe and her underwear. And this is the man in court in the last hours answering up on the charge of murder. Straight out to Phil Farrar, news anchor reporter KOGO, in court today. Tell me, Phil, number one, why don't I have a positive ID on the body? Don't need DNA? Can use dental records? Number two,
oh, Jesus.
What happened in court?
Eerie in court today, Nancy. He came in, John Albert Gardner. He never did look up. His head bowed down, his eyes would go back and forth. Came in a blue jumpsuit, a white t-shirt.
Oh, really? Oh, really, Mr. Farrar? He wasn't smiling like he did in his last mugshot only about 20 minutes after he tried to rape a 13-year-old girl? He wasn't smirking in court?
No, he wasn't. Not this time, not at all. It was a packed courtroom. Chelsea King's parents were in the back. And this time when he came in, it was different. It was eerie. Everybody was staring at this individual. He was not staring back at all.
Of course it was eerie, Phil Farrar. I mean, look at his hands. Did you see those hands? Liz, take the shot in full. I want to see his hands. According to police, this is the man, these are the hands that murdered 17-year-old Chelsea and buried her body in a shallow grave. I guess it was eerie, Phil Farrar. What happened then after he came into court?
After he came in the courtroom, he waived, or his lawyer waived his right to hear the arraignment of the charges against him, and he was then released and remanded, I should say, back to the custody of the Sheriff's Department with no bail. No bail
Unleash
whatsoever.
the lawyers. We are taking your calls live. I'll be right back with Phil Farrar with KOGO joining us there at the San Diego courthouse. With us, Gloria Allred out of LA. You know Gloria, renowned attorney, victims' rights advocate. Kirby Clements, former prosecutor, now defense attorney out of Atlanta, and former federal attorney, now defense attorney in New York, Doug Burns. I'll tell you why they didn't want the charges read, Gloria. Because I saw defense attorneys do this all the time. They don't want their clients standing there and having any reaction whatsoever when you read out what they say he did to this 17-year-old little girl. So they go, waive a formal reading. We don't need to hear the charges. Thank you, though, Judge. That's what happened. Gloria? Okay, I can't hear Gloria. You go, Kirby.
Well, no, I think you're right, Nancy, that, you don't want your charges read out so that the prosecutor can sit there and allege that your client reacted in an improper manner. And, also this is being played out in the press, so you don't want the press to start psychoanalyzing your client. So you do waive arraignment. And let's get this case into the formal process. Let's get some motions filed. But no, don't read it.
Please put the lawyers up. Kirby, before you became a defense attorney, as I recall, you were a violent crimes prosecutor along with me in inner city Atlanta. And I drew a lot of, let me just say, assumptions when the defense attorney refused a formal reading of the indictment. You know why? Because the client is embarrassed. Because what they do off in private, behind closed doors, in secluded, heavily wooded areas, is one thing, but they don't want to answer up in front of a packed courtroom. What about it, Doug Burns?
I agree with you, but with all due respect, Nancy, I've never seen the indictment read in any case I've ever appeared in. It's always waived, honestly. Seriously, that's just normal procedure. I mean, you may be right in the sense that, of course, you don't want to have the guy make some facial reaction, but every time I go to court for an arraignment, the charges are not read aloud.
Straight out to the lines, Francine, New Jersey. Hi, Francine.
Hi, Nancy. We love you here in Jersey.
Thank you, Francine. And I love Jersey, too.
Thank you, sweetheart. How's Mom doing?
Let me tell you something. After last week, when I asked you guys for your thoughts and your prayers for my mom, she was having a very hard time after surgery. The next morning, I called her, and she had done a complete turnaround. So, thank you. What's your question, love?
Well, my question is this. I cannot believe that they would let a man that raped a 13-year-old child get out of jail I realize they don't want the child to speak. I know it's very traumatic for the child. After 5